Hello readers by eyes and by ears, this is Mari Chan and welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing with another reading of Ballad of Sword and Wine Volume 6, also known as Tang Jiu by Tang Jiu Qing, and we are covering chapters 199 through 201 today, so I hope you all enjoy. Chapter 199, Triumphant Return. Yang Chu strode out of the yamen. As he stood under the eaves waiting for his carriage, he spotted the commoners seeking refuge from the wind. Finding them inauspicious, he spat on the ground and rubbed it out with his foot. "Are you people dead?" he snapped to the subordinates around him. "Huoling Yuan has an excuse for his ignorance, do you? These people are crawling with disease. By the time the infection spreads from the yamen, it'll be too late for you to cry." The men rushed out fearfully, hurrying to drive the commoners away. Yang Chu boarded the carriage and closed his eyes to rest, fuming as he recalled the earlier conversation. Midway through his journey, his subordinates called through the curtain, "Chief, there's news." Yang Chu opened his eyes. "Go ahead." "Fang the 10th has not returned to his residence," the subordinate said. He shook off his tail, then switched carriages and made a beeline for the vault. Yang Chu yanked the carriage curtain aside and glared. Fearing he had already lost his opportunity to claim the vault, he ordered, "Quick, gather our men." In less than an hour, the subordinate was back with another report. The Tizhou garrison troops had attacked the city. The platoon commander had charged out with a musket, but the embroidered uniformed guard was waiting right under the walls. The man only made it a few lengths before they snapped his neck clean off. This turn of events was so unexpected, the city gates weren't shut in time. Fanzhou's banners atop the city wall were already burning. Yang Chu's face turned deathly pale at this news. He gripped his carriage door and looked toward the city walls, where fire was raging against the backdrop of indigo clouds. Half of the 4,000 men Yang Chu had brought from Dengzhou had gone still to fill vacancies on the city walls. At first, in order to have a hold over Huoling Yuan, he had arranged to place the fiercest men under his command there. He hadn't expected them to be so easily killed by the garrison troops. Yang Chu flew into a rage. "Is the dumb bastard out of his mind? The hell is he defending the city for? It's not even my fucking city! Take your weapons and get to the vault now. If you come across that old Fang dog, hack him to pieces on sight. Once you've loaded up the money and treasure, get out of there." A flurry of footsteps echoed throughout the city as the bandits' boots trampled the icy slush. Mud spattered the legs of their pants and streaked the hems of their robes as they ran. Whistles from all directions fused into a single shrill wail. No one could tell who was who when the gangs collided in the streets, and no one stopped to ask questions as they rushed frantically to draw first blades and cut each other down. Puddles of blood cooled in the snow. The bandits, slavering over King Yi's treasure, had gone feral. When Yang Chu barged into the vault, he found stacks upon stacks of chests. He pried open the nearest one, which was filled to the brim with dazzling gold ingots. For a moment, the bandit was frozen in place, unable to move an inch. Then he scooped the ingots into his arms and wept with joy. King Yi is so fucking rich! Shen Zichuan's chokehold on the northwest of Zhongbo had left Yang Chu feeling increasingly suffocated. Now he could break out of Shen Zichuan's control, even if he had to smash his way through with gold. "Get these chests out of here, quick!" Yang Chu stared fixedly at the gold in his arms. "Get them all onto the wagons!" Yang Chu's wagons were parked within the vault's courtyard, but there were too many chests, and they were all exceedingly heavy. His people had only moved half of them before the wagons were packed full. Unwilling to leave anything behind, he instructed his subordinates to go steal more wagons. Fang the 10th was next to arrive, shouting orders the moment he got off his carriage. Waving a handkerchief, he yelled, "Stop him! Don't let him leave!" The door to the vault was narrow. A great number of bandits, hoping to steal a piece of the treasure for themselves, had hidden gold in their clothes while they were inside. Yang Chu slashed them to death when he noticed their bulging pockets. The man had lost his mind. He couldn't tolerate anyone challenging him for the money. Just as they were moving the last chests, Fang the Tenth's wagons entered from the back and got tangled up with Yang Chu's convoy, completely blocking the courtyard entrance. Fang the Tenth leapt his way across the wagons and landed in the courtyard, waving for his men to follow. They hacked at every one of Yang Chu's men they could see. Yang Chu's subordinates were crammed between the carts, their hands full with the heavy chests. They didn't stand a chance. One slash of the blade, and they toppled over dead. "Sneaky son of a bitch!" Fang the Tenth cursed. "Give me back my money!" Wiping blood off his face, Yang Chu kicked the vault door open and charged out with blade in hand, slashing left and right. The space instantly became a sight of slaughter. Blood stained every wooden chest crimson. The carts at the back jostled against one another, knocking over any chests still unsecured. Rocks tumbled over the ground. "Rocks?" someone shouted. "Are these fucking rocks?" Yang Chu and Fang the Tenth froze where they stood. Both turned to look at the scattered stones. Panicked, Yang Chu abandoned the fight. He lunged at the nearest wagon and smashed a chest open, only to find that it, too, was filled with rocks. Among the dozen or so wagons, only a few chests contained gold, while the rest were packed with stones and gravel. Yang Chu's legs went weak as chest after chest was broken open. He braced himself against the side of the wagon, his eyes so red they were about to drip blood. Fang the Tenth frantically looked around. "We've been had." The wagons at the entrance of the courtyard suddenly smashed through the door. A moment later, the courtyard door banged shut. A greasy liquid poured down the insides of the walls. One bandit took a sniff, and the color promptly drained from his face. "Oil! Break down the door!" Fang the Tenth squeezed between the wagons and pushed his way toward the entrance, yelling, "Quick, break it down!" Carefully treading through the snow, Huo Yuan edged along the top of the wall. His hands had turned blue in the freezing night, but it didn't stop him from striking the flint. Yang Chu turned at the sound. "Huo Yuan, you son of a bitch!" Huo Yuan was clutching a sheaf of yellowed papers. Notices King Yi had posted outside the yamen. He touched that bundle of lies to the tinder. Bathed in the glow of the flames, he said, voice dripped in revulsion, "Go to hell." Tongues of flame licked toward the sky as the fire swept through the courtyard in a roaring wave. The dummy chests contained not only rocks, but also dry, flammable grass. The flames engulfed the bandits in seconds. Yang Chu and Fang the Tenth struggled in the blaze, rolling on the ground and cursing Huo Yuan amid blood-curdling screams. Huo Yuan watched the fire hungrily. The sound of crackling flesh was exhilarating, like the pop of belated firecrackers. He roared with laughter as the stench of charred flesh rose up with the smoke, his eyes as bloodshot as his victims. Burn. He would burn this scum to death. Power and influence were a crock of shit. All he desired was for every last one of them to pay with their lives. From King Yi to Cui Qing, from Yang Chu to Fang the Tenth, not a single one of them will go free. Unable to escape, the bandits pounded on the walls and wailed beneath the gouts of flame. The oil soaked their clothes, and the inferno tore away their hair and crisped their faces into unrecognizable char. The fire spilled out of the courtyard, leaping along the eaves of the houses until all of Fanzhou was ablaze. "Who's setting the city on fire?" Yin Chang, dragging the platoon commander's head in one hand, jumped up and down in frustration. "The governor will have to pay for the damages if it's burnt." Fei Sheng wiped blood off his saber and looked up toward the firelit sky. "Internal strife, huh?" The Zizhou troops had breached the city gates, yet no one had come to aid the Fanzhou soldiers guarding the wall. Discouraged and fatigued, they couldn't even shoot their arrows straight. The moment they saw their platoon commander killed, they gave up any attempt at resistance. Fei Sheng shook off his distraction and looked pointedly at the embroidered uniform guard behind him, a signal to search the city and seize the muskets. Yin Chang's tirade earlier had left him thirsty. He insisted on drinking a few gulps of wine now that the battle was as good as won. He scratched his cheek and held the still warm head out to Fei Sheng as though giving him a gift. "Take it. Keep him well." Fei Sheng darted out of the way to avoid the blood. "Why the hell are you carrying that thing around?" Still holding his treasure, Yin Chang said with a roguish laugh, "Hand it over to the governor when we get back. It's evidence of our military achievement." A chill ran down Fei Sheng's spine as he imagined the scene. Shan Zhichuan sitting in the front hall, all in white, and this gory head was passed to him. If a drop of blood touched so much as the edge of Shan Zhichuan's folding fan, they could kiss their lives goodbye. He hurriedly took the platoon commander's head and, while Yin Chang was busy with his drink, shoved it into the hands of a soldier with orders to bury it. Sure enough, the Zizhou garrison troops returned in triumph. Zhou Gui met them outside the city gates with a welcome party. As encouragement for the new soldiers, he had cooks prepare a spread of roast meat and grilled fish to fill their stomachs after their long march. While the soldiers stopped at the gates to wait, the commanding general entered the city to see the prefectural governor. Yin Chang hadn't dared to take a single sip of wine today. He followed Fei Sheng into the prefect's manor. The door to the study was wide open, and Kong Qiu and the others were already standing on the steps. As soon as they entered, Kong Qiu came forward to welcome them. "Elder Yin," Kong Ling smiled at the old general. "The warrior's treasured blade truly never rests. Looks like you still have it in you." Yin Chang knew Kong Ling well. Craning his neck toward the door, he asked quietly, "The governor is inside?" "Waiting for you." Kong Ling ushered them up the steps. Yin Chang always went weak at the knees when he met officials. "The governor personally assigned you to this command," Kong Ling reassured him. "There's no need for me to tell you what that means. Just answer any questions his lordship asks. Don't worry." Fei Sheng spoke up beside them. "I'll help Elder Yin so he doesn't trip over himself before his lordship." It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned the possibility. The moment he did, Yin Chang's legs turned to jelly. He placed his hands on the steps for support in a panic, then scrambled to his feet with an "oh my," and demanded, "What's his lordship going to ask? What if I can't answer?" Kong Ling turned back and was about to reply when Yin Chang's 2-month-old body odor hit him full in the face. He was so dizzy he couldn't remember what he was going to say. Earlier, he had been standing upwind and didn't notice the smell. They were already standing in front of the hanging screen. It was too late to back out now. Kong Ling threw Fei Sheng a look. "Why didn't you remind Elder Yin to take a bath?" Fei Sheng almost choked on all the unvoiced grievances stuffed up inside him. He wanted to respond. What was I supposed to do if he refused? This crafty old coot had an endless stream of excuses at his disposal. The winter was too cold, he'd said. It was more practical to be dirty since they had to march to war. The layer of grime would prevent their feet from freezing. Wasn't it all hogwash? The screen had already been lifted, so Kong Ling had no choice but to enter. Out of habit, Yin Chang lifted his foot to stride across the threshold, only to realize that this doorway had none. To accommodate Yao Wenyu's wheelchair, Shan Zhichuan had long since instructed the servants to remove the thresholds inside and outside the manor. Yin Chang gingerly set his foot down and shuffled in. Shan Zhichuan had seen Yin Chang before, but only from a distance. Back when the garrison troops had yet to be reestablished, it was the imperial army who had fought the bandits from Mount Luo. Later, when the garrison troops began recruitment, Shan Zhichuan had been constantly away and out of the city. The two men could just barely recognize one another. Today, Shan Zhichuan was wearing a wide-sleeve robe over his regular attire as he sat in the seat of honor, the color so crisply white he seemed to radiate a pure and ethereal glow. Kong Ling began, "Your lordship, this is—" Before he could finish, Yin Chang had dropped to his knees. A series of heavy thuds rang out as the old man kowtowed repeatedly toward Shan Zhichuan. The whole thing's going to hell, Fei Sheng thought as he knelt to kowtow as well. He raised his head and hurried to help Yin Chang up. The advisors entering behind them had no idea what was going on. When they saw the general kneeling, they assumed the governor must be furious. They followed suit and knelt as well. The atmosphere in the hall had taken a strange turn. Fan dangling from one hand, the allegedly furious prefectural governor swallowed his words of congratulations, his greeting cut off by their cow toes. He floundered for a moment, unsure whether to remain seated or stand up. Yao Wenyu was quickest to react. Seated in his wheelchair, he bent over and spoke gently to Yin Chang. Elder Yin braved a fierce battle and narrowly escaped death. It's natural to feel overwhelmed upon seeing his lordship. But your triumphant return today is a joyous occasion. Let us not be so somber. His words were wisely chosen. He indirectly praised Shen Zichuan's judicious selection of a general, inspiring such gratitude in the old man that he was moved to tears. At the same time, he also made it clear to the advisors behind him that this master and servant pair was on good terms with each other and all was well. Shen Zichuan finally found his voice again. The journey must have been difficult indeed. Fei Shang, hurry and assist Elder Yin. Gentlemen, please rise and take your seats. Fei Shang helped Yin Chang up, but how would Yin Chang have the courage to look at Shen Zichuan? He approached him with the same caution he did the enemy troops and didn't dare even breathe too loud. Kong Ling was torn between laughter and tears. What had initially been a relaxed and cheerful atmosphere had been destroyed by one misstep from Yin Chang. Now everyone was afraid to so much as smile. Fortunately, Shen Zichuan was adept at controlling the atmosphere in the hall. He lowered his voice and took an unusually gentle tone as he asked Yin Chang about their food and clothing while on the move, and about the weather on their journey back. After a series of such unhurried exchanges, Yin Chang's answers flowed much more smoothly. At this point, Shen Zichuan began to question him more closely about the battle. Fei Shang had hoped Yin Chang's body odor would go unnoticed, but the smell was simply too strong. If the old man wanted to skip baths for 2 months, that was his business. But on top of that, they had just returned from the battlefield and reeked of blood, a stench amplified by the heat in the hall. Yu Xiaozai, seated next to Kong Ling, was listening politely to their conversation when he caught a whiff. Distracted, he attempted to identify the scent. It bore a strong resemblance to rancid rice mixed with unwashed feet, yet it also recalled salted fish soaking in swill. Salted fish. Sorry. It was a smell unlike anything he had ever come across. A truly one-of-a-kind odor. What was more, this odor, sharp and intense, was a force to be reckoned with. In no time, it pervaded the entire hall such that Fei Shang, with his acute sense of smell, was close to passing out. Shen Zichuan's expression remained unchanged throughout. Anyone else could subtly cover their nose with their sleeve, but not Shen Zichuan. Yin Chang had conquered a city for him. If he revealed any hint of disdain here, he would surely wound the old man's feelings. Moreover, in consideration of the defeat that had come before success, the rewards according to Yin Chang were modest, at least on the surface. If Shen Zichuan covered his nose, it would give those beneath him free rein to belittle Yin Chang. Unaware of the suffering he was causing, Yin Chang gesticulated wildly as he exclaimed over the firearms in Fanzhou, his excitement increasing as he rambled on. Xiao Chuye, who had been staying at the Beiyuan training grounds the past few days, was late to arrive. He had ridden over specifically to meet this old man when he heard of his triumphant return. He made his way under the eaves, but, so as not to interrupt, signaled the attendant not to announce his arrival. Gu Jin was helping Xiao Chuye remove his cloak when his nose twitched, and an expression of horror came over his face. "What's wrong?" Xiao Chuye asked in puzzlement. Before Gu Jin could respond, they heard a clang from inside the hall, followed by Yu Xiaozai's panicked cry, "Now why in tarnation did he faint?" Fei Shang, upon hearing Xiao Chuye arrive, had panicked. Xiao Chuye was sure to catch a whiff of the reek the moment he entered. The person sitting right beside Yin Chang was Shen Zichuan. Fei Shang couldn't afford to shoulder the responsibility should he take ill due to the stench. Yin Chang had fought a winning battle, so nobody would blame the old man. That meant that they could only settle the score with old Fei the 10th. This was inevitable. It was just his rotten luck to be the one assigned to the campaign. Everyone in the hall was close to keeling over, and Fei Sheng was about to be wrongfully prosecuted for their deaths. Thus, he took one for the team. He collapsed in a heap and played dead before Shen Zichuan. Shen Zichuan immediately lifted his folding fan and adopted the impressive air of a commander leading a magnificent army. With perfect composure, he instructed, "Help him to the side hall and call for a physician. Elder Yin, you must be tired after your long journey. Changfeng, please send someone to prepare hot water. Once Elder Yin has properly bathed and rested, we can start the banquet." The moment Yin Chang heard the word bathed, he jumped in alarm. "Your lordship, I don't—" From outside, Xiao Chuye called out, "Qiao Tianya." "Got it." Qiao Tianya ducked inside and hoisted Yin Chang over his shoulder. He laughed boisterously as the old man struggled in his grip. "Happy New Year, Elder Yin. Time to wash up." The gentlemen in the hall were so relieved they didn't wait for the word from Shen Zichuan before hurrying to throw open the windows. The rush of cool air on their faces felt so refreshing, everyone simultaneously sucked in a long, deep breath. Chapter 200. Clandestine Affair. No one had expected it would take nearly 4 hours for Yin Chang to bathe. The gentlemen in the study waited until they were famished. Yu Xiaocai's eyes drifted time and again to the snacks on the table, his stomach growling. At last, Shen Zichuan extracted himself from a discussion of Suzhou's affairs and turned to him. "Youjing, when we mobilize troops to Duanzhou in the second month, Duanzhou will serve as the supply depot. Tang Jiu is unfamiliar with the workings of the yamen there, so I'm sending you to keep an eye on things. You'll have the authority of inspection and oversight. If anything crops up, don't bother going through the relay stations. Send the report directly to my desk." In Chudu, Yu Xiaocai had been a censor in the Chief Surveillance Bureau and a student of the left censor-in-chief, Can Yu. He had spent his early years serving as a touring censor and had often been dispatched to inspect government affairs in the regions outside of the capital. As such, he was more familiar than most with the ins and outs of the local yamen. Shen Zichuan was reestablishing Duanzhou's administration, and the key functionaries there were all fresh faces from Suzhou. They were not yet reliable. Yet, he was not sending Yu Xiaocai to Duanzhou as a censor. Instead, he was merely giving him the authority of oversight and direct report associated with this office. Although Yu Xiaocai had no official title, his position could carry considerable weight. His responsibilities were equivalent to the old position of Zhongbo's surveillance commissioner, who had overseen the review of each prefecture's local administration. Yu Xiaocai hurriedly redirected his gaze from the snacks and rose to bow to Shen Zichuan. "Duanzhou is still unsteady on its feet," Xiao Chuye said. He had taken his seat beside Shen Zichuan. "Tang Jiu holds a military post. He's not supposed to interfere with the yamen, but we have a severe lack of manpower. We can't worry about the strict division of duties right now. Tang Jiu is a tad obtuse in this area, so he'll need you to advise him as much as you can on the larger issues." Tang Jiu was a trusted subordinate of Xiao Chuye. Sending him to Duanzhou was essentially a demotion, but Zhongbo was severely lacking in generals. They couldn't do without him. Moreover, given his background, no one in the Duanzhou yamen would dare defy Tang Jiu. Xiao Chuye was therefore throwing his weight behind Yu Xiaocai as well. With Xiao Chuye's support and an appointment from Shen Zichuan, Yu Xiaocai would have no one to fear when he made his rounds in Duanzhou. And if he should be assigned to other prefectures in the future, his work in Duanzhou would bolster his position. Yu Xiaocai was practically radiating glee, but it wouldn't do for him to show it. He held his joy in check and bowed again to both of them. "This humble subject will certainly do my best to honor my lord's kindness." His answer was loud and clear, but so was the next rumble from his stomach. The resulting duet was so resounding the whole study was stunned into silence. "The celebratory banquet for the garrison troops is tonight." Shen Zichuan saw it was already getting dark. "I shan't hold you gentlemen back. Let's start the feast." The feast was laid in the side hall. Shen Zichuan took his place in the host's seat, but Xiao Chuye had just returned, and Yin Chang still had yet to show himself. He sat for only a short while as a gesture of appreciation before taking his leave. Most of those present were his advisors, and they didn't dare drink or let loose in Shen Zichuan's presence. Once the prefectural governor retired for the night, they would be more at ease. Qiao Tianya had carried off Yin Chang, and with no one hovering over him, Yao Wenyu was unable to turn down the warm invitations of his fellow advisors to share toast after toast. By the time Qiao Tianya returned, he was slightly tipsy, leaning back in his chair as he laughed and chatted with Kong Ling and Gao Zhongxiong. Catching him in such a rare moment of leisure, Qiao Tianya paused outside the door. He let down the hanging screen and waited patiently under the eaves. There, Fei Shang caught sight of him. He beckoned him over and called through the fall of fine snow. "Let's go. What are you standing here like a pole for? There's a table set up in the duty room. We're all waiting for you." Qiao Tianya didn't move. He looked relaxed and unrestrained as he leaned against the doorpost. "Has everything been arranged for Master?" "Of course it has." Fei Shang strode over and peered through the gap in the hanging screen. "These gentlemen tend to break up late. You won't miss anything if you come back after we're done. There are guards inside and out here. Everything will be fine." Qiao Tianya thought for a moment, then lifted the screen. Yao Wenyu glanced over at once, as if sensing his waiting presence outside. After a short pause, Qiao Tianya lowered it again. "I still have a few jars of fine wine in my room. Send someone to fetch them. Consider it my apology to everyone for my absence." Fei Shang was still for a moment. "Who cares about that old wine of yours? Come on. Master released us from duty, yet you're still lingering here." He had already had a few cups and was more talkative than usual. "Master assigned me to recruit new members for the embroidered uniform guard a few days back. Did you hear about it?" Qiao Tianya folded his arms over his chest and eyed Fei Shang. "Sure." Fei Shang pointed at himself, then at Qiao Tianya. Holding back a belch, he said, "I'll be honest with you. Master has his eyes on you to lead the cavalry he wants to build in Duanzhou since you're pretty good at fighting and all. What are you doing with yourself? You follow Yao and Yu around as though you've forgotten your roots. If you go on like this, you'll sabotage your own future." Snow had gathered on the hilt of Qiao Tianya's saber. He looked out into the courtyard and said absently, "This is where my future lies. You worry too much. The Grand Mentor himself gave you to our master." Fei Shang reminded him in hushed tones, frustrated at Qiao Tianya's lack of concern for his own career. "The day Master took you in was the day he received Avalanche." Qiao Tianya had once sworn to be Shen Zichuan's blade. Courage, insight, temperament, physical prowess. He had them all. He had been willing. He could have become for Shen Zichuan and Zhong Bo the same kind of right-hand man as Zhao Hui and Chen Yang in Libei. His future would be bright, his prospects boundless, and restoring his clan to its former glory would become more than just a dream. But ever since Shen Zichuan had assigned him to Yao Wenyu's side, he had lost his desire for such a future. The tasks Shen Zichuan had handed to Fei Shang, recruiting new soldiers, accompanying Ying Chang's troops to Fanzhou, were all assignments Qiao Tianya no longer cared for. Qiao Tianya blew on the snowflakes drifting toward him and watched the wind instantly sweep them away to disappear into the pitch-black night. He left the snow on his blade untouched, and Fei Shang unanswered. Xiao Chuye had removed his armor. He sat reading Fei Shang's report on the details of the Fanzhou campaign wearing only an inner robe. To think even King Yi could get his hands on muskets somehow. Was he more capable than we thought? 135 of them, Shen Zichuan said as he removed his wide-sleeved robe. All of them from the Chunchuan battalion. The serial numbers from the Ministry of War are still engraved on them. He was merely a mountain bandit without a proper army. Xiao Chuye set his elbows on the armrests and watched Shen Zichuan undress. Who gave him such expensive trinkets? Shen Zichuan's outer robe slid over the skin of his wrists and pulled on the woolen rug. His day robe was fastened with pearl clasps, which made subtle popping sounds as he flicked them open to reveal his smooth, fair neck. He laid a hand over his nape, lost in thought. So unguarded was he in this moment, it was as if he wouldn't put up the slightest resistance even if he were pinned down to the rug and ravished. There's no benefit for Chudu in letting those firearms slip from their grasp. They must have been stolen. Shan Zichuan's throat bobbed slightly when he spoke. Xiao Chuye gazed at it without so much as a flicker of expression. He was exceedingly familiar with this sight. When he pressed himself against Shan Zichuan until they dripped with perspiration, Shan Zichuan had a habit of tilting his head back and exposing that tender throat. Xiao Chuye was simply too tall. Even when Shan Zichuan was lying down, he had to crane his neck to meet Xiao Chuye's kisses. Xiao Chuye conjured up a dozen such scenes in his mind, but his placid expression betrayed nothing of what he was thinking. He unconsciously caressed his thumb ring, rotating it on his finger. I heard Yin Chang brought back a captive. Qing Yi's lover, a man surnamed Hua. Cheng Feng said he's the son of Hua Qing, the former commander of Dengzhou's garrison. Shan Zichuan glanced over at Xiao Chuye. We can meet him tomorrow morning. This man used muskets to scare Yin Chang into retreating, Xiao Chuye noted. He knows a thing or two then. Someone must have taught him. Shan Zichuan released the last pearl clasp, and his day robe slid to the ground. The beauty, finally comfortable, kicked off his wooden clogs as he walked. His slender waist, no longer hidden by fabric, was silhouetted in the dim light. He was a priceless jade made flesh. Xiao Chuye felt a rush of secretive pleasure. This sort of foreplay between them was something no others were privy to. The desire to occupy Lanzhou gradually swelled in his chest, filling it to the brim. Send a few muskets to Libei tomorrow morning. The military craftsmen can take them apart to determine the design. Heirigu learned Yin Chang's formation just from watching back at the Beiyuan training grounds. He used it in our drills and gave me no chance to fight back. When we march on Duanzhou, I want Yin Chang to come along. Xiao Chuye tossed Fei Sheng's report onto the desk. Shan Zichuan picked up a cup of tea to take a sip, then turned his gaze on Xiao Chuye again and asked pointedly, Will you not take me along? Sure I will, Xiao Chuye said flippantly. I have a tigress of a wife back home who keeps a tight leash on me. I can only steal a few moments of pleasure with you when we're on the move with the troops. Wickedness twinkled in the upswept corners of Shan Zichuan's eyes. You have such a fierce wife. It scares me. Xiao Chuye matched Shan Zichuan's tone. Come now. I'm fierce too. Shan Zichuan held up the folding fan between his teeth, playing the vixen. I'm not afraid of you being fierce. Coyly, he said. But you only come over once in a blue moon. Xiao Chuye tilted his head slightly. What can I do? I'm but a hen-pecked husband. If it were me... Shan Zichuan lowered the fan. He leaned close to Xiao Chuye's lips and murmured, I would stay home all day longing for you, making love to you, stirring up a storm under the sheets. Xiao Chuye kissed him, muffling those shameless words as he pulled him onto the bed. He felt his way down Shan Zichuan's back but found no foxtail. At this hour, the lamps had dimmed. The drapes around the bed had long since been let down. There was no one to interrupt them, yet their urgency was such that it was really as if they were having a clandestine affair. They moved desperately against each other, biting back ragged moans. I want both of you, Xiao Chuye whispered. Shan Zichuan had already been bitten to the point of tears, his cheek chafing against the sheets. Under Xiao Chuye's heated gaze, he strained to look up with wet, shimmering eyes and panted in a fit of pique. You greedy cur. Xiao Chuye had spent nearly 2 months on the battlefield, and he'd been at the Beiyuan training grounds ever since he returned to Zizhou. Now, as he took hold of Shan Zichuan's chin to stare into his eyes, he chuckled lowly. You're absolutely right. Shan Zichuan was taken ruthlessly by Xiao Chuye. After so long, their coupling felt completely different. The change in Xiao Chuye was evident in every movement. This time, there was no tenderness in his treatment of Shan Zichuan. Being so hungrily invaded, possessed from head to toe, made Shan Zichuan feel as if he'd surrendered completely, a captive to the conquering Xiao Chuye. His heartbeats, his voice, his breath. Xiao Chuye wanted all of Shan Zichuan. Even as he dominated him, He wanted more. Sweat and tears mingled on Shanzatran's face. He couldn't take any more. He could barely catch his breath. Yet Xiao Chuye wanted even the tears he had yet to shed. Xiao Chuye had once desired the sky and the grasslands. He desired the Hongyan Mountains. He had tamed the falcons and horses, flying across the vast lands of his dreams. But he didn't want any of that anymore. He wanted Shanzatran. Shanzatran began to cry in earnest. He raised his head, his expressive eyes glistening, awash in emotion. As he tipped over the edge into euphoria, he murmured, "Ah, yeah." Xiao Chuye thought he was afraid, but Shanzatran lifted his chin slightly. His face flushed and licked his lips. His eyes were seductive and just as wild as the time he'd leapt into Xiao Chuye's embrace from Fuxian Peak. "Oh, how I love you." Those words spurred Xiao Chuye faster, and he kissed Shanzatran fiercely, gripping Shanzatran so tightly he couldn't escape by even an inch or break free of his hold long enough to breathe. Every thrust drove deeper. Shanzatran's body was racked with fine shivers. They abandoned themselves to pleasure in the dim lamplight, the sheeps growing damp with their sweat, until there was nothing left but each other. Chapter 201. Passions. Shanzatran couldn't get up. The insides of his thighs were covered with bite marks, and Xiao Chuye had fallen asleep on top of him, pinning him down. Shanzatran had still been asleep when Fei Shang came to call him late in the morning. He couldn't even lift his face. Xiao Chuye leaned down and kissed him where he had turned his head to sleep. The kisses so intense, Shanzatran could scarcely breathe. "Spare me, please." Shanzatran strained to rise, then collapsed back onto the bedding, eyes half closed, and rasped, Mine's in a whirl. Can't think." Xiao Chuye's chest pressed against him, a furnace that had him sweating. Red bloomed everywhere across Shanzatran's skin. There were the bite marks, and then there were the pinch marks. The back of his neck was the worst off, having borne the burn of Xiao Chuye's assault. At the most intense point last night, Shanzatran had found himself caught in Shanzatran's lap with his legs hooked over Xiao Chuye's arms, unable to move except to lean back against Xiao Chuye's sturdy chest. Amid such overwhelming pleasure, Shanzatran forgot all about placating their clandestine affair as he cried out, "Ah, yeah," and "Tuan," until he came. After that, Xiao Chuye had pinned him down and continued until Shanzatran came again, face pressed to the pillow. He couldn't remember how many rounds they had gone, only that, eventually, his tears had run dry. Toward the end, he was dizzy, but Xiao Chuye still wasn't satisfied. He thrust into Shanzatran until his soft moans became pleas for mercy. His voice, thinned to nothing by his cries, inflamed Xiao Chuye. It made his heart itch so badly that the only way he could find relief was to bite Shanzatran again. Poor thing. Xiao Chuye pulled him into his arms and whispered, "I'll hold you up." Yin Chang had risen early and come to wait outside of the veranda to seek an audience with the prefectural governor. Fei Shang saw the old man glancing around, looking uncomfortable in his own skin, and struck up a conversation. "Sir, you met with him yesterday. Why are you still so nervous?" Yin Chang tugged at his sleeves. I feel all wrong. They rubbed me so hard with those bars of soap yesterday. My skin was all wrinkly." Fei Shang stifled a laugh. 7 or 8 young male servants had been sent to attend Yin Chang yesterday. Together, they scrubbed him for a full 4 hours, going through several big tubs of hot water. It wasn't until the middle of the night, after the banquet had ended, that the old man made his escape, holding up the legs of his pants as he scuttled away from the servants. "Bathing is good for you," Fei Shang said. "You look well, more energized. You could pass for my brother today." "Don't you fucking lie to me," Yin Chang mumbled. He hadn't had a good night's sleep. "You've got a silver tongue, that's for sure." He looked around furtively again. Is Arya inside too? Uh-huh. He rushed back just to meet you. Then can I go to Li Bei? Yin Chang blurted. I'd like to meet General Lu. Fei Shang was stumped. He didn't know how to reply. Yin Chang's desire to meet Lu Guangbai was no surprise. That deadly formation of his was obviously adapted from the Bei Juan Commandery garrison troops. But Li Bei was fighting a war right now, and the area along the Chashi River was unstable. Yin Chang couldn't run around as he pleased. He was still thinking when he heard movement on the other side of the door. Let's see his lordship first, Fei Shang suggested. See what he says. A window had been cracked to let in some fresh air. It wasn't especially chilly today, but Shan Zichuan was sensitive to cold and wore a coat even indoors. During the journey back, Fei Shang had taken a look into Huo Lingyuan's background. He'd written a report on his findings in their entirety for Shan Zichuan, leaving out no detail. Shan Zichuan hadn't gotten anywhere close to reading it before bed last night and was looking through it carefully now. The muskets Fei Shang seized were handed over by Huo Lingyuan himself. Shan Zichuan turned the folding fan between his fingers before setting it down. This man is interesting. I'll have to meet him. He and Xiao Chuye were both seated on the settee. All that separated them was a low table. Sitting with an elbow propped on its surface, Xiao Chuye looked playful, but the expression in his eyes was wicked. Every glance over was an invasion. His eyes swept between the words, male lover, bitten to death, and arson. He's tough, he commented. If Huo Lingyuan hadn't thrown a wrench into their plans with the muskets, Yin Chang would have taken Fanzhou during his first assay. Shan Zichuan would never have been forced to give Yin Chang the ultimatum to win or return with his own head on a platter. Yin Chang later successfully provoked the enemy out of the city, stepping onto the battlefield openly this time. But the fire Huo Lingyuan had set in Fanzhou had diminished the impact of the battle. Failures and achievements had offset each other, and Yin Chang's reward was once again reduced by half. It was possible Huo Lingyuan genuinely wanted to throw in his lot with Shan Zichuan, but had not employed the optimal strategy. He'd fought a battle with firearms to show Shan Zichuan he was useful, more useful than the generals Cizhou currently had. They were still reviewing the report when Yao Wenyu entered with Kong Ling pushing his wheelchair. Following them was Yu Shaocai. The gentleman bowed to Shan Zichuan, who gestured for them to take their seats. It's so cold, Shan Zichuan said to Yao Wenyu. You should have asked Xiao Tianya to come drop me a note, and I would have moved the meeting to your courtyard so you didn't have to make the trip. Yao Wenyu didn't sleep well the night before, and his eyes were slightly bloodshot. He had brought his cat along today, and the animal was curled up in his lap. It's just a stone's throw away. There's no need for your lordship to put everyone to such trouble. I saw Elder Yin and Fei Shang waiting outside. Will you see them now? Yes, Shan Zichuan said. Elder Yin has been waiting for almost an hour. Fei Shang led Yin Chang in, kneeling to both Shan Zichuan and Xiao Chuye. Xiao Chuye looked at Yin Chang. Did Elder Yin sleep well last night? This was the first time Yin Chang was formally meeting Xiao Chuye. He hadn't gotten a good look yesterday, but now that he was within spitting distance, holy smokes, he thought. This Arya is much too tall. Xiao Chuye's legs as he sat on the settee were almost as long as two Yin Chang's. Yin Chang grew nervous all over again. Wringing the hem of his robe, he mumbled, Not too bad. Elder Yin, please take a seat. Shan Zichuan knew Xiao Chuye was an imposing presence, neither approachable nor agreeable. Thus, he softened his own tone. We'll be discussing some military affairs with the gentleman today. The troops will soon be deployed to Duanzhou, but Fanzhou cannot be left unattended. Kong Ling was familiar with Dengzhou, so he was the first to speak. Based on Fei Shang's report, Huo Lingyuan is inextricably tied to everything that happened in Fanzhou. He comes from a family of generals. His father was Huo Qing, the commander of the Dengzhou garrison who repelled the bandits in that prefecture in the 6th year of Xiande. Huo Lingyuan's feud with Yang Qiu and the rest of Dengzhou's bandits probably begins there. Ah, I remember Huo Qing. Yu Shaocai settled in his seat and continued. He submitted a memorial to the Ministry of War that year, essentially a report of victory. However, within the next few years, the prefect of Dengzhou, Peng Fangmiao impeached him for being headstrong and conceited. He accused him of resorting to arms without due consideration and thus provoking the bandits in the prefecture to seek revenge of the commoners, which devastated much of Dongzhou. The Ministry of War deliberated quite a while before deciding not to promote him. Shen Zichuan motioned for Fei Sheng to stand, then addressed the gentleman. The local governments are a mixed bag, Shen Zichuan explained. From the time the Pan and Hua factions took control of the court, the impeachments that came from the lower levels were a mess. The majority of them arose from personal grudges. Very few of the cases handled during the reign of Xiandu were valid. He was right. Setting aside his own reasons for disliking the Xiandu emperor, the factions during his reign were as irreconcilable as fire and ice. Everyone in Chudu distinguished between enemy and ally based on what faction they supported, and the division within the regional governments was even worse. The legitimacy of Huo Qing's impeachment could not be determined based on a few memorials from that time. Whoever Huo Qing was then has little bearing on Huo Lingyuan now. Xiao Zhiye drew a clear distinction between father and son these days. You escorted him back. What did you think of him during the journey? Yin Chang was an honest man with a one-track mind. Fei Sheng didn't let him speak. He could tell from Xiao Zhiye's tone that the second master did not like Huo Lingyuan, and neither did he. Fei Sheng served Shen Zichuan. He would have plenty of opportunities to distinguish himself on the field once they established light cavalry, but Yin Chang might not get another chance. The old man's hair and beard were white. After all these years, he'd finally been granted this one battle, and now some male consort had appeared out of nowhere and snatched most of the old man's credit out from under him with a few flashy tricks. Though his expression remained neutral, Fei Sheng was displeased. For the sake of revenge, this young man endured great hardships. He did whatever it took to achieve his goal. He's impressive, I'll give him that. But when I arrived at Fanzhou's yamen, I noticed the coats of King Yi's mastiffs were full and glossy. When I asked around, I learned Huo Lingyuan fed King Yi and Cui Qing to the dogs. If he had a grievance against King Yi, why didn't he reach out to us earlier so we could work together? Rather than agree with Fei Sheng, Shen Zichuan paused for a moment in thought. Since everyone is here now, go ahead and summon him. Huo Lingyuan had spent the last 2 days in a cell. The wardens who delivered his meal never spoke to him. Fei Sheng had taken special care to give him heavier shackles than usual, but it seemed he did nothing but sit there. The moment Huo Lingyuan stepped into the courtyard, Gu Jin could hear something amiss. Flanked by Ding Tao and Li Xiong, he watched from the veranda as Huo Lingyuan trudged past. They're heavy. Li Xiong pointed at Huo Lingyuan's feet and said to Ding Tao, That's the set of chains I wore. But he seems to be moving freely. Ding Tao tattled to Gu Jin. Jinge, he's trained in martial arts. He was far from merely trained. Gu Jin lifted a finger, motioning for the guards hidden around the courtyard to be on alert. He patted Ding Tao and Li Xiong's backs to shoo the two young ones aside, then approached the half-lowered hanging screen and caught the eye of Qiao Tianya on the other side. Qiao Tianya looked appraisingly at Huo Lingyuan's back. He's rather formidable, he murmured. Shen Zichuan didn't size Huo Lingyuan up immediately, but Huo Lingyuan didn't shy away at all from sizing up Shen Zichuan. The prefectural governor was 22 this year. He was undoubtedly beautiful, the corners of his eyes tapering up at the perfect angle. Any higher, and they would give him a seductive, come-hither look. As they were expressive, as if they should be swimming with emotion, yet he seemed extraordinarily cool and detached. His gaze, when he looked over at last, was chilling. He was unfathomable, an abyssal pit that appeared more dangerous the longer one looked at him. Whether it was because Shen Zichuan had been in a position of leadership for a long time Huo Lingyuan didn't know, but he found that Shen Zichuan had an overpowering air when he did not speak. It wasn't the kind of opposing aura that rushed at him head-on, but a bone-chilling frost that crept along his limbs and froze his heart. So this was Shen Zichuan. Xiao Zhiye nudged his thumb ring. His posture remained unchanged, but the weight of his presence fell upon Huo Lingyuan like a kick to the face. Narrowing his eyes, He looked down at Huo Yuan, his regard so oppressive the young man could barely hold his head up. Shan Zichuan was the precious jade pearl Xiao Zhiye held between his fangs. Those with prying eyes were asking for death before they even got within striking distance of Shan Zichuan. Just a look was an affront to Xiao Zhiye, even if Huo Yuan was only looking out of curiosity. Although the gentlemen advisors in the room hadn't grasped why, they could sense the second master was displeased. The atmosphere grew heavy, pressing down on their chests until it became difficult to breathe. Your confession statement doesn't tell the whole story. Only now did Shan Zichuan glance at Huo Yuan. You turned over the firearms, but you didn't explain where they came from. It's vexing when someone only gives half an answer. Huo Yuan had experience with both men and women, and he thought he understood the look in Xiao Zhiye's eyes. He flicked his gaze away from Shan Zichuan and shifted. The shackles around his wrists clanged. Naturally, there are some things I can only discuss in front of the prefectural governor, he answered calmly. If what you say displeases me, Shan Zichuan said, his tone cool, then whether you're in front of me or not, it's all the same. When Suzhou advances on Duanzhou in the second month, you will be met with scorpions in addition to the Biansha horsemen. Huo Yuan looked up at Xiao Zhiye without a trace of fear. Xiao Fengxue is dead. Does the Libe armored cavalry still have what it takes? Sir. The pad of Xiao Zhiye's finger froze on the notch in his thumb ring. He finally moved. Deliberately, he leaned forward, his aura enveloping Huo Yuan. Across the ground crept the shadow of a wolf with one eye. Fei Sheng, who had been standing off to the side, swiftly dropped to one knee and lowered his head. Beside him, Yin Chang felt a prickle of fear run down his back. Heart thumping, the old man almost slid all the way to the ground as he knelt after Fei Sheng. A deafening silence descended, within and without the room. Xiao Zhiye was angry. Alrighty, everyone. That concludes the reading for today. So I am just going to go over my notes really quickly. Oh, interesting. These chapters were very interesting. So I guess I'll just go through my notes as I always do. I don't know why I'm saying I guess. Y'all, the love of money truly is the root of all evil, because we have these two bandits, this Yang Qiu and Fang the 10th, fighting each other for this money, when initially they were supposed to be fighting for Fan Zhou, but because they were so greedy and wanted this money, they were going at it, which was kind of stupid. I know Yang Qiu was like, why are we trying to defend Fan Zhou? Like, just take the money and run. But it's like, yo, if you're so focused on taking the money, it's very easy for you to get got, you know? And so, yes, it was very easy. They essentially brought their own demise right to Huo Yuan's fingertips, and he burned them alive. Horrible way to die, but I don't even feel bad for them. It's whatever. So then the other thing that I just wanted to point out is I truly, truly like Shan Zichuan as a person. You know, we get a lot of Xiao Zhiye being such a loving husband, you know, him just caring for Lanzhou and all the many exceptional things that he does, you know, from the beginning, But truly, when Shan Zichuan is just a kind person overall, because here we have it mentioned, which in previous chapters, the stuff with Gao Zhongxiong already happened, right? Where he was like, hey, like, if you're struggling, let me know. I don't want you to be down in the dumps. Oh, and don't speak so lowly on yourself. But then in these chapters, we have him having removed the thresholds from his manner, so to make things more convenient for Yao and Yu. Such a small gesture, but just so kind, so sweet. And I was just like, Lanzhou is so sweet. I truly, truly love him so much, you know. And then even with him meeting Yin Chang, who seriously needed to just bathe in bleach at this point. He was not rude to him in his stinkery. I've been in a situation before when I worked in fast food where someone came in and they reeked. It was so awful. And I was told that I had to deal with this customer. Oh, God. It was difficult, but I managed to keep a straight face and served him, kindly, and took him his food and everything, took his order and then gave him his food. It was difficult. I don't know what not 2 months of bathing is like. I wasn't ready to pass out from the smell that I smelled from this guy. But for people wanting to pass out, for it to be that bad, I can only imagine how difficult things were for Shen Zichuan. And yet, he kept a straight face the entire time. And then I believe that he very eloquently, not eloquently, he just very subtly, kindly, I can't think of the word right now, at the end was like, we'll let him have a bath and then we'll get to everything. I was like, wow. Because he could have been rude about it, like, dude, you stank. You need to shower before you come to me. Like, he could have done that, but he was so kind about it. And I just love his character so much more for that. So then moving on, we got a little bit of Fei Sheng and Xiao Tianya chatting. And ultimately, Xiao Tianya, ever since he's been with Yao and Yu, I'm sorry, not with him, but ever since he's been taking care of him, been assigned to him by Shen Zichuan, his goals, his desires have changed. And I'm here for that. Like sometimes you start a path and you think it's going to go this way. These are the goals that you have. This is exactly what you want to do. And then something happens, whether you're assigned to do something or you just like take a step in the new direction and you realize, wow, I actually don't care about those things over there anymore that I thought I cared about. Huh. Okay. So that's just kind of where we are with those two. With Xiao Tianya. I would love to get more Xiao Tianya and Yao and Yu. So hopefully it comes soon. Yeah. Anyway, moving forward. I love hearing Shen Zichuan confess his love for Xiao Chuye so freely now. Because we know that it was Xiao Chuye who said it freely first. And Shen Zichuan didn't say it back for a bit. But now he's just like, oh, how I love you. Oh, how I love you. And I'm just like, oh, how I love you loving him and letting him know that you love him. Yes! And so anyway, I loved all of that, And then the next thing I want to say is we have Huo Lingyuan. Who are you? Who are you, my guy? Because you got these Li Xiong heavy chains on you and you just walking freely. So you ain't just training martial arts. You secretly a martial arts master or something. Come on. Tell us the truth. Tell us. So anyway, we'll see where that goes. I also love though that he's able to feel Shen Zichuan's oppressive power, like upon meeting him. Shen Zichuan didn't even say nothing yet, but he's just like, whew, I feel the weight. Oh my God. I'm like, yeah, feel that weight. So anyway, Huo Lingyuan, speaking of this man, are you trying to die? I'm not even talking from the aspect of him looking at Shen Zichuan. I'm talking about the aspect of him looking at Xiao Chuye and being like, yo, daddy dead. Can't believe it, armored cavalry still hang. I was like, sir. How you just fed some people to the wolves, you finna experience the same thing from this wolf who's no longer a cub. Okay, you you finna die. And then the other thing that I just wanted to point out, because I noticed it a lot recently in this volume, even though he's always done so, Xiao Chuye has been messing with his thumb ring a lot. And I don't know if any of you who have the book noticed, because I definitely didn't pay attention. But on the side binding of the book is his ring. Actually, there are like tiny little cracks in it. But It's his ring. And I just thought that was a little interesting, and I wanted to share that with y'all. Anyway, there's really nothing else to say about that. I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, holding you and trying to die. That's how I feel. Man is trying to die. But I don't really have anything else to say. I just greatly enjoyed these chapters, and I'm looking forward to see more about this Hualing Yuan, because honestly, I feel like he's a bit cray cray, kind of like in the same realm of Shanzichuan, because Shanzichuan, this man, donkeyed Jile, right? So, I mean, feeding the what's-her-namers to the dogs, it's, I don't know, to me, it's just kind of right up the same alley. So I'm like, crazy? Meet equally crazy, or maybe crazy meet extra crazy. Which one's extra crazy? I'm not particular. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I feel like the energies they're matching each other's energy. What's the song? Is somebody gonna match my freak? That's how I feel. Are they matching each other's freak in this moment? Anyway, hope you guys were okay with these chapters, that you all enjoyed them. I hope you have a phenomenal day. And yeah, that is pretty much it. So, let's see, today is Monday. I'm recording this on Tuesday for Patreon, and it's going to be Thursday for my YouTubers. So this is kind of early / kind of late. I do have an announcement that I am making on Wednesday. I'm putting that here to encourage everyone who is listening to this story to go listen to that announcement that's releasing on Wednesday on both platforms at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is very important, and I hope that you guys, like I said, will listen to it and will understand. But anyway, yeah, that's it. Just let me know you guys' thoughts and reactions, and I will see you all next time. Well, I Neiman.